Welcome to the agenda with me, Lasha in Douala, Cameroon. On today's edition of the program, we are discussing the way forward out of the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. Recall that the government of the Republic of Cameroon, through the Minister of Communication and Government spokesperson, René Emmanuel Sadi, had recently debunked news that she had mandated the Canadian government to mediate in the ongoing conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. This news did not go well with Cameroonians and other groups who have been praying and advocating for the return of peace and internationally mediated settlement of the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. One of such groups is the Coalition of Federalist Group and Activists, led by Dr. Simon Munzu. Stay with us as we'll be right back after this short jingle break. Dr. Simon Munzu in Washington, D.C., thank you so much for joining me once again on this other edition of the agenda.
Good afternoon, good morning, depending on what time you have there, Mr. Kingsley Lasha. Hello to viewers of the agenda. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. The pleasure is shared, Dr. Simon Munzu. You are the chair of the Coalition of Federalist Group and Activists. Let me begin by asking you what this group stands for.
Before I answer that question, Kingsley, I would like to begin, if you would allow me, by paying a short tribute to a great practitioner of your profession. So we are yet to recover from the brutal and beastly killing of ace investigative journalist Martinez Zogo. And here comes the shocking news of the passing away after a short illness of Chief Zache Nsungkikang, who, as you know, was the founder, owner, and chief executive of the Edin Media Group. You know, he was, as I knew him, a fervent advocate and practitioner of quality journalism in the English language in our country. His flagship media platforms, the Edin newspaper, Edin radio, published or broadcast from Victoria in the southwest region, are a testimony to this.
Yes, just to add to that, Doctor, he has groomed so many journalists who are excelling well in different field of, walks of life, as we were told, and from testimonies coming in. So many of them, they are mourning. We are equally mourning this way, Doctor. Thank you for that that recognition over there.
And unfortunately, it comes on the heels of others who went before him in terms of promoters of the media in the English language. I mean, we are really saddened by that, because I'm thinking at this moment of Dr. Bob Fobbin of the Herald, Mr. Francis Wache of the Post newspaper, Chief Fuang Kamayong Paul of the Star Newslines. These are really great losses for us, but even for those who went before Chief Nsungkikang, I take this opportunity to extend my condolences to their families, and especially to the children, wife, and extended family of Chief Nsungkikang.
Okay, Doctor. Like before you said what you were saying, I was asking you what this group stands for. You are the chair of the coalition of Federalist Group and the activists. Let me begin,
No,
like I mentioned, by asking you what this group stands for.
The coalition of Cameroon Federalist groups and activists, which I'm sure many of your viewers must be familiar with, because we've been on the ground since September of 2021. The CCFGA, as its name suggests, is a coalition of Cameroonian groups and activists, in terms of individuals who may not belong or want to belong to groups, but who are all committed to fighting for the re-establishment of federalism in Cameroon. We believe that, especially as we are moving towards the end of the current reign that has lasted more than 40 years, Cameroonians should be thinking seriously about what kind of country they want to have when the current reign ends. And we believe that federalism would be the answer to many of the governance problems that our country has faced of late, whether it be in terms of taking care of the sense amongst Anglophones that they are marginalized, they are subjugated, they are assimilated. How do you put an end to that and remove the sense amongst Anglophones that they are second-class citizens in their own country? It is through a return to a system of government which the two territories agreed on in 1961 when they came together, under which the two heritages, the two ways of conducting public affairs were to be honored, respected. You know, so federalism will allow us to solve the Anglophone problem by once again giving to the Anglophone regions the autonomy that they deserve and which they bargained for when they came into the Union.
Okay.
But on top of that, Mr. Lasha, the experience ever since the federation was abolished shows that the provinces that were carved and today called regions out of the Union, people have come to expect their respective provinces yesterday, regions today, to manage their own affairs in a way that reinforces development in every region.
Okay.
Instead of managing everything from Yaoundé, even under the guise of decentralized unitary state, whereas we know the governors and SDOs and DOs continue to dictate everything.
Okay, Doctor.
So a return to federalism will also guarantee the 10 regions of the country, you know, a considerable degree of autonomy. Not this. I was going to say fake, but the word is used too much these days. But it's the fake decentralization that we have now.
Okay.
You know, so based on all of that, we believe firmly that the pathway to dealing with the governance issues in our country, in order to promote development in all the 10 regions of the country, is through a return to federalism.
Yeah, Doctor, you had earlier, or your group had earlier endorsed the Canadian peace process, which of course was rejected by the government of the Republic of Cameroon. How did you receive the news of rejection of these peace talks?
Well, you know, Kingsley, I would desperately hope, because I'm an optimist by nature, and I desperately not only hope but believe that the government of Cameroon did not reject the Canadian peace initiative or peace process, because if it did, not only would that be irresponsible on the part of the government, which knows that our country is in very difficult situation with the conflict that has been going on in the northwest and southwest regions for more than 6 years now. It is an irresponsible government that would turn down the opportunity of all the parties engaging to find a lasting solution to this problem. I therefore hope that what the government did through the communique that was issued by Minister Rene Emmanuel Sadi did not amount to a rejection of the Canadian peace process. Now, they said that they did not mandate anybody to act as facilitator or mediator, but I mean, I would, and I'm sure many of your viewers and Cameroonians in general, and even outside Cameroon, will be very surprised and will still refuse to believe, regardless of what the Cameroon government may say, that Canada could have taken on this initiative and announced to the whole world that the parties have agreed to engage in a peace process, including the government of Cameroon, when in fact the government of Cameroon did not participate.
Doctor, I was about to ask you. Doctor, I was about to ask you. You are an international diplomat. You've worked for the United Nations for a very long time. And when you read through the note that was sent out by Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister, and the note did reveal that the United Nations had been at the center for the past 4 months, at the center of negotiation or pre-talks with separatists and the government of the Republic of Cameroon. Whose truth is then true? If we have to go by the two releases, reading from what Rene Emmanuel Sadi sent out and what the Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister sent out. You've worked for the UN and you know how the UN operates. Could it be that the Canadian government was lying, or the UN did not take part in the pre-talks between the separatists and the Canadian government?
There is absolutely no doubt. There is also no doubt in my mind that contacts were made between the various actors that you have named, particularly the government of Cameroon, Canada, and under the observation of the United Nations. And these last two are not countries or institutions that would lend their name to a process like this, make it be publicly known that they were engaged in it, when in fact there was nothing happening. Come on, no one would believe that. So either the Cameroon government is not telling the truth for one reason or the other, and I have no reason to say why they would not want to tell the truth on a simple matter like this, or there are two Cameroon governments. And that may not be surprising, given the way things are working in the system right now. Is there a part of the Cameroon government that engaged as government with Canada, while perhaps another part of the government did not and was opposed to the initiative, and that it is that part which was opposed to the initiative that has issued this statement purporting to be issued on the part of the government? That disturbing as it may appear, would be the explanation. Otherwise, we don't see how, at whatever level it may be, people will go to meetings with Canada for several months, and at the end of the process, when it is revealed to the entire world that this process has been on, the Cameroon government says that it is not part of it. So to answer back to your earlier question, I hope that this is only the first reaction of the government of Cameroon, but that as the government of Cameroon takes stock of the situation, realizes the folly of its not wanting to engage, in the active search for a solution to the Anglophone problem in Cameroon and the ending of this war that is so destructive to our people, I hope that the government of Cameroon will come to its reconsider its position, and the doors, as I understand it, are open. We saw and read that the Canadian Minister of Foreign Affairs reiterated their position that they were approached to mediate and facilitate this process.
So where do we go from here, Doctor?
Well, I mean, where do we go from here? You know, I hope you received and read the statement was issued by the CCFGA, the coalition of Cameroon federalist groups and activists. And in that statement, we do urge the government of Cameroon and all the separatist armed groups to come to the table. So our desperate hope and prayer is that they listen to this call, which is not coming from us alone, but from everybody else, and that they re-engage in the process. Now, if they don't do it, then Cameroonian people, Anglophone and Francophone, will have to find a way to exert pressure, because at the end of the day, Kingsley, this conflict is not hurting the government officials who are in Yaoundé as such. It is not hurting the separatist leaders who are living in Europe and elsewhere as such, United States and so on as such. It is hurting the population. So there has to come a time when that population also has to take its own responsibility. For too long, we have been sitting on the sidelines, we, the people of Cameroon, have been sitting on the sidelines as if this conflict was happening somewhere else. As if it was outside Cameroon that people were suffering the consequences of this war. There is no point us continuing to repeat every day. 6,000 people have died. 800,000 people have been internally displaced. Thousands of others are refugees. 600,000 children have been deprived of school, and so on and so forth. How can we, the Cameroonian people, in the face of this evidence of what is happening, just fold our arms and say we are waiting for the day that the government in Yaoundé and the separatists around the world decide to come together? No. We're getting to the point where the population will have to ask itself, does sovereignty actually belong to us in this country or not?
Apparently, Doctor, like you are saying, the population will have to ask itself if sovereignty belongs to them or not. Looking at what is happening in Cameroon, to think that an institution that is supposed to protect the population is involved in the killing of the journalists that you paid homage to recently. We are talking about the Directorate General for External Research. How did we get to this level, Doctor?
Well, I mean, it's totally disheartening. If the facts were not coming out now, as I understand they are, through an official investigation, it would be difficult even to believe if someone simply told us that this was the situation. Because indeed, how can, if it is true, and I mean, I'm a lawyer, Mr. Lasha, so I don't presume that at this point we are talking about hard facts. You know, there are investigative actions that have been initiated. On the basis of that, we're getting, you know, reports here and there about the evolution in the investigation. But we don't really have the hard evidence against anyone yet.
But
Cameroonians
are afraid just getting that news that people of such caliber at the level of the government could be involved in things like that. They are just, it means nobody is safe any longer.
But absolutely, I mean, it will be horrifying, because these are state officials in charge of the national apparatus that is responsible for assuring not only the security of the state and its institutions, but also the safety of individuals that you and I are. Now, so if it is they who, for their own selfish reasons, would conspire to start killing individuals in the horrific manner in which Martinez Zogo was killed, then I mean, it tells a lot about the system, and we citizens ought to be worried. And when citizens are worried, they don't fold their arms and wait to hear or to see who the next victim would be. Before Martinez Zogo, there was a series of other victims. So how long can we citizens, as I said, fold our arms, just wait to hear the next news report about the next victim? No, we've gotten to the point where citizens have to say, this is not the way a normal government and its institutions behave, and we have to do something about it.
Okay. Yes, Doctor, Cameroon just celebrated the 57th edition of the National Youth Day. That's 2023 National Youth Day. I want to ask you, how significant is this day in the history of Cameroon?
Well, I mean, the history in terms of 11th February as such, we know the significance or the origin of 11th February. 11th February denotes or reminds us of the day on which, through a plebiscite conducted in the British Southern Cameroons, the population of that territory voted in its overwhelming majority, for their territory to achieve independence by joining the previously French-administered Republic of Cameroon. So by the way, 11th February as Youth Day was instituted by the government of West Cameroon, contrary to some of the historical distortions that I have read here and there. The Youth Day was instituted by the government of West Cameroon, and it was celebrated only in West Cameroon. But after 1972, President Ahidjo, having seen that this was a brilliant idea, have a day dedicated to the youth, turned it into a national Youth Day.
So, Doctor, so how did it become? How did it become a scam or an attempt to erase the history of Cameroon?
It became a scam. It became a scam, just like everything else has become a scam in the governance system of our country this past 40 to 45 years. Mr. Lasha, and to the regret of every one of us. Now, a day as noble as that, which is dedicated to our youth, ought to be the occasion for us as a nation to reflect on the destiny of the young people of our country. Do we have adequate schools for them? Do they have proper access to health? Are we creating an environment that allows them to develop in such a way that they compete with the youth of other countries in things other than football, etc.? Now, instead of that, it has been turned into one more event where civil servants use the opportunity to make themselves money, and turn our youth into nothing other than people whom you bring together once a year to march to the pleasure of governors and SDOs and DOs who stand there to watch them march past, or sit there to watch them march past. You know, so we need, the noble idea at the beginning was fantastic, have a day for the youth. But as with everything else in Cameroon, the significance has been completely distorted, you know, and now we have a day that does not serve the interests of the youth at all. And if you don't take care of the youth of your nation, you are in effect killing your nation.
Yes, Doctor, and sometimes Francophones are blamed for the distortion of history that we are talking about. Is it really the Francophones who are supposed to be blamed when it comes to this issue of National Youth Day, knowing fully well that it's all started in West Cameroon?
I'm not blaming. I don't go into that game. I don't go into the game of Francophone, Anglophone in our country, Mr. Lasha. Except to the extent that Anglophone Cameroon has been, or Cameroonians are being dominated, marginalized, subjugated, assimilated by a regime, by the governance system of a regime, not by Francophones. Let's not make that mistake. At least I don't make it.
Okay.
You know, so the distortion that we're talking about is not necessarily by Francophone historians as such, because I'm sure that even amongst us Anglophones, especially you, the younger generations, many may not be aware of the origin of Youth Day. Having said that, it is all of us, Anglophones and Francophones in that country, who are victims of the poor governance system that is being followed by those who are, quote unquote, ruling us from Yaoundé. You know, so again, on an issue like this, it is the youth of the entire country, not Anglophone or Francophone, the youth of the entire country who are being neglected, who are being despised, who are being exploited for political and financial gain by an insensitive group of people in Yaoundé who purport to be our government.
Doctor, are the youths themselves equipped, fully equipped and prepared to take over leadership in Cameroon?
How can you talk of taking over leadership in Cameroon, Mr. Lasha? Even in your own family, would your father consider handing things over to you without preparing you for assuming the role that he gives you? You know, the whole idea that it's time for the youth to take over. Of course, the youth are entitled to take over, but you prepare them for the role. And you prepare them for the role through the system that you have, through the system of values that you inculcate in them in terms of their ethical code by which they live, you know, through exposing them to the rest of the world and opening opportunities to them, etc. You do that, and by the time they are ripe enough in age, they take over naturally. You know, there is no reason why the president of Cameroon should not be 40 and 50 years old today. There are many 40 and 50-year-olds who could be president. There are why a 40 to 50-year-old should not be speaker of the assembly. Why a 40, 50-year-old should not be speaker of the Senate. Why a 40 to 50-year-old should not be the one directing the national police in Cameroon. Why a 40 to 50-year-old should not be the one, the general manager of SNH, and so on. Okay. But the point is not simply that you say that the youth should take over. Prepare your youth. And when you prepare them for taking over, they will take over naturally and perform in that role, because that is a progression of development. You know, parents should be prepared to hand over to children. But while waiting to hand over to the children, they should prepare the children for leadership. Mr. Lasha, you yourself are a youth. If I ask you today, what is your general sense? Do you have a general sense that the Cameroonian youth are prepared for leadership? What would be your answer if you are honest?
Big no. Big no, of course, Doctor.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Simon Munzu, for joining me on today's edition of the program, live from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Lasha. Thanks for having me, and good luck. You're doing a great job there at the agenda. Good luck to you and to your media house, my Media Prime.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
That's
Bye-bye.
it. That's it for today's edition of the program. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye from this end.